of feel like this August has been a little bit about release for me at least, and not at least for me at least. Not the pretty kind or the kind where you light something and you journal about it and you feel all clean and sparkly afterwards, but more so the kind of energy where, like, sometimes I end up catching myself mid sentence. Sometimes I'm like already, I don't know, about 3 paragraphs deep into trying to explain my own reality to somebody who may be never equipped to receive it. Let's say it like that, okay? And I have started to just stop mid breath and come on, let that silence sit right there instead. And that's just kind of what I've been working on all month. Not necessarily trying to say less because I'm scared, because I ain't, but saying less because I just want to be able to clock who am I spending, I don't know, the rent in my brain on. And that just to me feels like also the entire assignment of this week astrologically. Because this is the last full week of Leo season. Once we hit Saturday night, the sun will be leaving Leo and will be crossing into Virgo, and everything in the 7 days before it is almost like this closing sequence. What you're carrying into the next straight stretch of the year and what you're finally kind of putting down at the door. So everything I'm about to say will be in Eastern time. Let's get into it. And let's talk about where we are in the year. Because before I go anywhere near a transit, I want to just talk about what's actually happening outside. Because that is where all this energy comes from. So right now, we are at the back end, the brightest, most externally facing stretch of the year. What I mean by that is late August has a very specific kind of feeling. It's like the light's still strong, but it's changed angle. Now it comes in a little bit lower and more golden in the evenings, and we kind of get darkness by 8:30 instead of 9:15. So this is the energy kind of where like the grass is either scorched or is getting shaggy from being left alone too long. And everything that grew this summer has finished growing and is just sitting there being what it became. And underneath that, we have the world quietly reorganizing itself, right? We got school supplies being out, schedules coming back. Everybody's calendar typically starts filling in around the 3rd week of August, whether you agree to it or not. And that is the energy of Leo handing off to Virgo. And I want to slow down on what those two actually are, because I think the handoff is a lot of the story of this week. So what is Leo? Like what really is Leo? Leo, seasonal-wise, is the peak of the solar year. This is the stretch when the sun is at its strongest and the days are still long. The heat has finally arrived. Nothing's being built. And nothing's being cleaned up. Everything that's growing has basically already grown and it's just kind of out there in the full sun being seen, which is why Leo carries the meaning that it does of expression, visibility, taking up space, warmth, performance, generosity. It's the part of the year where you get to enjoy the thing you made instead of working on it. Fixed fire, which also means that heat holds its position, so it's more like a bonfire, not a spark. Now, what is Virgo? Virgo is what comes right after the peak, and you'll find that it's a completely different job. So Virgo is our mutable earth energy, whereas Leo's are fixed fire energy. Now, mutable earth, earth means tangible, material. Let me break that down first. It means the physical world, the body. Mutable means transitional. You're adaptable. So the part of a season where it's already changing into the next one. Virgo is the stretch of the year where the material world starts changing over and you have to deal with it. What I mean by that is the growing is done. Now, everything that is out there, it looks, or it has to be looked, I guess, at in an honest way. You gotta see what you have and sort through it. You have to find what's usable, what's not, what needs attention right now. You know, that is just the kind of energy that Virgo season brings. This is not glamorous work and is never supposed to be. And that is why Virgo carries even the stereotypes or the image that it carries of discernment, systems, editing, health, service, the unglamorous maintenance that makes everything possible. And if you notice, you guys, none of that's a personality quiz. That's kind of what just the year does. The zodiac, however, is what happens when people watch the year go over and over, generation after generation, and build language for how each stretch of it feels like to live inside. So let's talk about what early Virgo actually feels like. Because here's the part that nobody ever tells you. The first few days of Virgo season, they ain't about to feel organized, boo. They're gonna feel like anxiety. Because outside, Nothing still changed. It's still hot. It still looks like summer. The trees are still green. But something in you may have already flipped over and it arrives at like this kind of like low urgent hum that's like, get your life together now. And it says it before you have any actual information about what needs fixing. And that is early Virgo. The sun, at 0, 1, 2 degrees of the sign. And that sorting instinct switches on before the thing to sort is in front of you. So this is why you may end up reorganizing that drawer at 11 at night, because your body knows a transition is happening, and that is probably the only lever you can find. And if that happens to you next week, just know you're not spiraling. You're just early, okay? And listen, the handoff is never clean, and that's important. And it's going to matter on Saturday. So the sun, it changes on the schedule. The rest of the sky, it does not. Every planet, it moves at its own speed. So when the sun crosses into a new season, it doesn't bring everybody along with it. Some planets are still back in the old sign, doing the old thing, and some are already somewhere else entirely. So this means that a season change is never a clean cut. It's kind of more like the lights coming on or up in a room where maybe half the people haven't finished their conversation. And I think that's important to hold on to because it's exactly what happens on Saturday night. But I'm going to end up coming back to that at the end, so just bear with me, okay? But this is kind of like the week on the screen. Monday, the fog. Wednesday, the pressure point. Friday, the reality check. Saturday, the crossover when the sun enters Virgo at 10:18 and the season changes on that Saturday night. So I'm going to walk you through day by day. Let's go. Sunday, August the 16th. Moon in Libra. The morning is the good part. So a quick note on the moon, since it's going to move 4 times this week. The moon is the fastest thing in the sky. It goes all the way around the zodiac in about a month, spending about 2.5 days per sign. So while the sun tells you what season you're in and the outer planets tell you what era you're in, the moon is the daily weather. It's mood, reaction, what you need, how you feel before you thought about it. And the sign is sitting in colors, all of that. And Libra's cardinal air. So Libra lines up with the autumn equinox. This is the exact moment when the sky, when day and night are at the same length. And so that balance point becomes the whole thing. And air is all about ideas and how things connect to each other. Cardinal means it initiates, and the equinox means equal. Okay, so we have a few things there, but that basically means, like, in this instance, Libra is where you become aware that there's somebody else in the room and their experience is as real as yours. This can be relationship, fairness, negotiation, and the constant work of keeping 2 things level. So Sunday morning is our Libra moon morning, and this is right on top of Venus overnight. And then it makes easy contact with Jupiter and Mercury before 9. And so Venus is the planet of value, like what you want, what you find beautiful, what you're drawn to, and what you think something is worth. So she's currently in Libra, which is one of her own signs. So she's operating at full strength. Now, a Libra moon sitting directly across Libra Venus, that is the softest configuration of the entire week. You know, this is the vibe where, baby, you could just fill up, wake up, just want things to be nice. And this is not a shallow impulse, but the actual assignment of the morning. But then we get around lunchtime, and the moon's going to be running into Saturn from across the wheel, and the mood could drop out, okay? So, and I say that because Saturn, if you don't know, is the planet of limitations, time, structure, consequence, cost. Kind of like the part of reality that no one says, not yet at least, or says that it will take longer than you will think. And now, this is not a villain. This is the thing that makes anything real, because when you really think about it, a thing without limits, it doesn't have a shape. And the aspect here, it is actually in an opposition, which means that they are two. It means that these two basically are about 180 degrees apart, and they're sitting directly across the zodiac from each other. So oppositions are the aspect of full visibility. See, you can't avoid the other side just because it's staring right at you. Normally, it shows up through another person or through a situation that reflects the thing back at you. So I say all that to say this, that a Libra moon opposite Saturn is basically like the feeling of like wanting harmony, but you're getting handed a limit instead. Maybe somebody doesn't want to do the thing. Maybe the plan needs way more effort than what it looked like originally. You may want to be easy about it, but just find yourself not quite able to get there. And don't worry, because it will pass. Sunday afternoon, it is more of a soft landing than a crisis. But I think you should notice what surfaces around noon, because that exact theme, it will come back with a lot more force on Friday. So wait till we get there. But if you got like some pleasant conversations, go ahead and get those done before lunch. And after that, I would suggest the rest and not force a plan that may not be cooperating, you know? Like, don't try to put a square in a round hole. Did that make any sense? We're just going to move on to Monday. So, Monday, all right, stay with me. This is the day that needs the most instructions. I feel like I need a whiteboard. I feel like I should have a whiteboard. But before sunrise, Mars will be squaring Neptune. So Mars is our drive. This is the part of you that initiates, it pushes, it wants, it competes, it acts. It's physical energy, and it's the willingness to meet resistance. While right now, Mars is currently in Cancer, and that is the cardinal water, which is the sign of the summer solstice. And Cancer, it protects, it's tidal, and it's inward, and it takes care of its own. Mars in Cancer is drive that ends up moving sideways. Like, it'll move sideways instead of hitting you straight on. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I'm like, Aries is the type that'll hit you straight on. No chaser, okay? Cancer, crab, is going to come at you a little sideways. It's going to act to protect rather than conquer. And it does not like being rushed. Like, think about a crab. Does a crab want to be rushed? No. Now, Neptune is the opposite instinct entirely, because Neptune dissolves boundaries. It's imagination, empathy, dreaming, transcendence. It's also fog, confusion, the loss of edges. You see, where Neptune touches something, the outline of that thing, it just gets kind of soft. And a square is 90 degrees. You have two planets at a right angle to each other, which in practice means that they actually cannot see each other and they don't speak the same language. And squares, they're not placements that resolve by understanding. Instead, they are placements that resolve by doing something. It's like whatever friction that will demand actions where you should look for. So Mars square Neptune is drive meeting the fog. And it's the one where you want to do something and your body just is not going to be producing the energy for it. It ain't going to have it to do. Your motivation is probably real, but it's not going to have no edges, okay? You might just feel oddly tired for no reason you can point at. And I think when you feel like that, sometimes, at least for me personally, it's so easy to just like feel like that's a personal failing. We don't have the energy to do what you need to get done. But it isn't. Let's not forget, we're talking about a Monday, you guys. But right around the time that most of you are probably like just starting your day, the moon will go in void, of course. And it will stay void until just before around 6 that evening, like 5:46 p.m. And so I want to explain that because it will come up twice more this week. So I'm going to explain it here. So the moon spends around 2.5 days in each sign. And while it's in a sign, it makes aspects to the planets, basically having conversations. So at some point, it will end up having its last conversation in that sign, but it kind of still has more ground to cover before it crosses the border into the next sign. And so that gap is what us in astrology calls the void of course. So the moon has finished its business in one sign and it just hasn't started doing anything yet. It's not talking to anybody yet. It's kind of like a hallway. And there's nothing wrong with the hallway. Typically, we wouldn't be trying to build something in one. And in practice, things you start during a void, they tend to not always develop the way you expected. I do like to call them mini Mercury retrogrades, but it's more like decisions made during one typically needs to be revisited. Launches could land oddly. It's not necessarily doom. It's just more like a bad window for anything you need to stick. What's generally good for it, however, is rest and routine and maintenance and cleaning, going back over old work, just doing things that you don't need to really put a lot of brain power towards and that doesn't really require a new outcome. And I say that because Monday's void is going to be eating almost the entire workday, 10 hours of it. So if you're launching something, sending a huge email, taking the important meeting, signing something important, making an offer, just try not to do it on Monday, potentially. Maybe move it to Tuesday morning or Thursday. And remember that this is also stacked on top of that Mars and Neptune fog. So you almost get no traction and you get no clarity at the same time. But having said all that, I do find there to be genuinely 2 really good hours buried in the middle of Monday. And Monday, late morning, we're going to have Mercury trining Saturn. And Mercury is your mind. It's how you think, how you process, how you say things. A trine is 120 degrees, which puts the 2 planets in signs of the same element, and it makes them instantly understand each other. You see, trines, they flow so easily, you can miss them entirely if you're not paying attention. Mercury and Saturn getting along means your thinking, it can actually hold some real weight and some real structure for a stretch. So late morning, I think is best to be used for the thing that just needs a clear head and maybe a long attention span. And then just afternoon, Venus and Jupiter will be making a sextile. And Jupiter is expansion. This is meaning, growth, generosity. Like what you believe is possible. And a sextile is 60 degrees, which is an opportunity aspect. So it's generally good, but it's not something that's going to force itself on you. It's something you got to take. Venus and Jupiter together is so warm and generous and very socially lucky. So potentially a good time to maybe ask for something you may want, or also just to be kind to somebody for no reason at all. They could do that anyway. But the shape of Monday, if I were to give it anything, is I think it's a foggy start. We got about 2 useful hours around lunch, a very long, strange afternoon where nothing gets traction, and the moon dropping into Scorpio right as the workday ends, making everything get deeper and quieter. And by evening, the moon will be opposing Chiron, which is a very tender point. It's a point, the place where you're still like a little raw. So something soft may come up. And Scorpio moon, it doesn't like to announce it. It likes to sit with it. So that's Monday. Now let's get to Tuesday, because Tuesday's a completely different animal, y'all. And it's really because of the sign change. So Scorpio's fixed water, right? It lines up with the deep autumn, the part of the year when the light is dropping fast and everything that died back is breaking into the ground. And this is not morbid. This is just what October does, where things decompose and what's underneath can become more real than what is on top. Now, water, it is your feeling and your depth. When it's fixed, it means that it holds its position and it doesn't let go. Which I always think is so weird, because I just see water as such a more of a mutable element. So like a fixed water sign to me is such a weird thing. Also a cardinal water sign to me is also just such a weird thing. But I digress, okay? So a Scorpio moon is a very emotional state that likes to go down instead of out, and it likes to stay there, like buried. It doesn't want small talk. It doesn't want to be perceived. And it can concentrate for an unnatural length of time because holding is what it does. Which kind of makes Tuesday the best working day, in my opinion, of the first half of the week. I think using the morning would be the best element or best thought. And then overnight, the moon be squaring Pluto and trining Mars. So some of you may have some very vivid dreams. Oh my gosh, I have the most insane dreams. Really quick story time. I was at my best friend's house working outside her porch at night. That's just what I do sometimes when I can't go to sleep. And there's like this raccoon, and I'm like on her porch, like in the corner. So like I'm like backed up, and I have a stray cat that, or outside cat that is like my cat. Like he followed. I've had him since he was a baby. I had his mom as an outside cat, and she got pregnant, and so then his name is Aries, and so Aries was outside with me. And when I first arrived at her house, like there's like a trash can like by her door. When I first arrived at the house, it tipped over, and there was like something over there, and I thought it was a cat. And so I'm like sitting down, and then I like look up, and my stray cat runs like in front of me. And then there's another like figure, and I think it's another cat, and it stands the freak up, because it's not a cat, it's a raccoon. So terrified. I like screamed a little bit, but my friend didn't hear me. Her mom heard me, and she they have like a screen door that's like a pretty solid screen door, and so she opens it and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, "Raccoon!" And she just like immediately like closes the door and goes to get her daughter, because she knows her daughter will protect me. And so that happens. But then I ended up having a dream when I got back home, and the raccoon was in my dream, and there was like this song where it's like, "Shawty, you pressed. Shawty, you pressed." And like I had a dream that like that raccoon was like there, and he was like singing the song, but he was like a hip hop raccoon. And he was like, "Shawty, you pressed." And every time I was like got scared, like he would like put out his claws like he was coming towards me, and you pressed, and he would like fold his arms like across his like body and just start like dancing like a little hip hop raccoon. And then her mom was in the back, like at the screen door, like dancing like along with the music. So vivid dreams. Sorry for the side note, but yeah, now you just know, Shawty, you pressed. So yeah, vivid dreams, that could be happening. I digress. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to go into that whole side story, but Pluto is basically the slowest thing we track, and it deals in what's buried, what's compulsive, and what has real power underneath the surface presentation. So a Scorpio moon touching Pluto at 2 a.m, it's not going to produce a light thought. Maybe it's better to just be asleep. I'm just kidding. But mid-afternoon, the moon squares Jupiter, and that's kind of the exact energy of when you say more than the situation needs in order to make your point, and then you may regret it later, because Jupiter expands whatever it touches, including your mouth. So I'd watch your mouth, basically is what I'm saying, around 3 o'clock. And then late afternoon, on Tuesday, the North Node will station retrograde at 29 degrees of Aquarius. So that sentence has 4 things in it that actually deserves real explanation, but I'm going to give them in their own section a little later in this episode because it's kind of the strangest thing happening this week. And I think it explains the emotional texture of all 7 days. But for right now, I just want you to notice if Tuesday afternoon has a hovering quality to it, like something's about to move and then it doesn't. Move on. Okay, so Wednesday. This day, the 19th, is going to be quiet on paper until the evening. And the evening is kind of the whole point. Just before 11 at night, we're going to be hitting the first quarter moon at 27 degrees of Scorpio. So let me talk about what the moon phase actually is, because this one does matter. They all matter, but this one definitely does matter. So the phases are really just the changing angle between the moon and the sun. New moon is when they're in the same place, so the moon is dark. Full moon is when they're opposite each other, so the whole face is lit. And the first quarter is the exact halfway point on the way up when the moon is 90 degrees from the sun. So that means our first quarter moon is a square. It's the same 90-degree friction aspect I described on Monday, happening instead now between the 2 brightest lights in the sky once a month on schedule. And it's very uncomfortable, and it's built to be that way because the first quarter is the friction phase of the lunar month. The new moon's the seed, the full moon is the reveal, and the first quarter is the part in the middle where whatever you started runs into its first real resistance. And that discomfort isn't a sign that you did something wrong. However, it can be information about whether the thing is built well. And this one, it actually lands at 27 degrees of Scorpio, so it's going to be deep in the sign, and this is not a casual go with the flow energy. The resistance here, it won't be out in the open. Instead, it'll be internal and more about control, what you're holding on to, the thing you haven't said. So I think the question of Scorpio first quarter just kind of would be inquiring about or wanting to know is, what are you still protecting and what is it worth? And is it still worth what it costs to protect you? And here's the part I love, because I think the second that phase goes exact, the moon goes void again. And it stays void until about 4:30 in the morning. So the pressure, it peaks and immediately there's just nowhere to put it. So instead you have to sit with it, which is kind of what makes Wednesday night a little journaling night. So instead of sending that text, write it down instead. You write in your notes out. Count to me. So now let's get to Thursday, because before dawn, the moon moves into Sagittarius and the whole atmosphere will lift. And I want to tell you exactly why that happens, because it's not necessarily vibes, it's mechanical. Every sign is a combination of an element and a mode. The element is what it's made of, and the mode is how it behaves. So Scorpios fix water, right? Water sinks and it holds feeling. Fixed doesn't move. So a Scorpio moon is very heavy and stationary by design. It goes down in the DM, and then it stays down, which is exactly why it can concentrate for 6 hours and why Wednesday night will feel like a Wednesday night probably felt like a pressure cooker. So Sagittarius is mutable fire. It's literally the opposite on both counts, because fire goes up and out, is warmth and movement and meaning, and mutable is the transitional mode. So the part of the season already turning into the next thing. It doesn't hold anything for long. Sagittarius lines up with the stretch of late autumn into early winter when the light is nearly at its lowest, and people respond by building fires, telling stories, traveling to be together, and reaching for something bigger than just the immediate situation. And this is why Sagittarius is a sign that carries meaning, perspective, travel, faith, and the search for the larger frame. So when we have the moon crossing that border before dawn Thursday, your emotional weather, it goes from sinking to rising and from holding to releasing in that same instant, where down becomes up and contained becomes mobile, and that's the lift. It isn't that Thursday is objectively a better day, it's that your nervous system just spent 3 days underwater and child is coming up for air, okay? And the rest of the day, I think it supports it because midday, the moon makes easy contact with Pluto and Neptune, which is just imaginative and a little dreamy and unusually good at seeing what could become instead of just what currently is. And then mid-afternoon, the moon opposes Uranus and something changes plans, because Uranus is disruption, sudden change, the thing you didn't account for, the break in the pattern, and it's in Gemini right now, which is mutable air. So you have the sign of information in exchange for the mutable air in Gemini. And that means that this disruption is likely to arrive as information, maybe a message, a piece of news, somebody telling you a thing you didn't know. So Thursday is the lightest day of the week and the emotional high point. If you got one thing that needs optimism and momentum behind it, I think this is where you should put it. Now, Friday. Friday's a loaded morning, move, vibe, energy, all of it. We have a reality check to go through here, okay? So about 8:45, we're going to have Venus opposing Saturn. Now, you've met both of them already. Venus is value, what you want, what you think is worth. Saturn is limit, cost, time, consequence. And the opposition ends up putting them at 180 degrees apart, basically staring straight at each other with just like kind of nowhere to hide. So, again, Venus is in Libra, her own sign, which means she's at full strength. She wants the thing, and she wants it beautifully. And she wants everybody comfortable while she goes and get it. And Saturn is in Aries, which is the sign of raw initiation. And Saturn being there, it puts specifically limits on beginnings. And this is the aspect kind of where the bill comes. Because I want to be clear about something. This is not a punishment or anything like that. It's evaluation. It's the moment you find out something is actually worth to you and what is worth to you. And you usually find out what it costs. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's a price you have to say out loud or a number you have to hold while somebody flinches at it. Or it could be a relationship. Maybe somebody wants access to you and you have to decide right there in real time whether they get it or not. I've had a version of this recently. I've had to hold a line about my own space about who gets to move through it and when. And the thing I'm proudest of it isn't that I held it. It's that I held it kind of without making it a production. Because I think that that's what this transit is actually asking for. Not a scene, not a speech, not you, Jakayla, explaining your reasoning until you pray that the other person finally understands you. And instead, I think it just wants a decision said plainly and then left alone. Now, the urge underneath is typically to over-justify it, right? To soften the no with so much context that it just stops being a no. And I think that should be resisted because Saturn, it doesn't need your explanation. Or all it needs really is your answer. And the sky is doing something very unusually kind, to be honest with you, because within about 20 minutes of that opposition, the moon's going to come in, it's going to come on in, and it's going to make a very supportive contact with both sides of it. So the hard thing happens. And then probably almost immediately, the emotional weather starts helping you to carry it, which is rare. And I think it's worth knowing about in advance. You're going to probably find the problem and find the solution like that. About half an hour after that, the North Node will be stationed direct, and the wobble it's been doing all week, it finally resolves. So if there's a number you need to name or a boundary you need to hold, I think Friday morning is the cleanest window you're going to get all week. So maybe try to say it and not try to decorate it. Now, let's get to Saturday. It's the last day of Leo season, and it's going to go out busy. Late afternoon, the moon goes void for about half an hour, which is honestly kind of barely worth mentioning. But then it's going to land in Capricorn right around dinner time. So Capricorn is cardinal Earth, and it lines up with the winter solstice because it's the hardest, most structural stretch of the year. The point where survival depends on what you built in advance. And this is a very practical mood almost immediately. Realistic, like a little like a sober feeling for real. In early evening, the sun will be opposing the North Node. And this is where the sun, at the very last degree of Leo, is staring straight across the wheel at the node at the very last degree of Aquarius. So you have two endings looking directly at each other. And then after that, at 10, the sun crosses into Virgo, and our season is changing. Saturday night, most of you will be outside or be winding down, and you probably won't even feel it till Sunday morning. So Saturday evening is a genuinely good night to close something out on purpose, to clean at least just one room, to finish one thing you've been leaving open. Let the season change, find you already at least halfway sorted. So now let me go back and unpack that node because I promised you I would. And I kind of think it's the best thing this week. So let's talk about it, okay? What are the nodes even are? All right, so the moon's orbit around Earth is tilted, right? About 5 degrees off from the plane of Earth's orbit around the sun. And because it's tilted, there are exactly 2 points where the moon's path ends up crossing the sun's path. And those 2 points are the nodes. So the north node is where the moon crosses going upward, and the south node is where it crosses going down. They're not planets, objects, they're actually intersections. They're places where 2 paths meet. And this is why they matter physically, not just symbolically, because eclipse can only happen near the nodes. A new moon somewhere else in the sky is actually just a new moon. A new moon near a node is what becomes a solar eclipse, because that's the only place the 3 bodies could end up lining in the same plane. So the nodes are the eclipse point. That's where the story of the year, I think, gets interrupted and rewritten, because they kind of move backward through the zodiac, and they'll spend about 18 months in each sign, and which means they take about a little over 18 years to go all the way around. And they've long been associated with direction and like where the collective attention is being pulled and what it's pulling away from. So why does 29 degrees matter? Because every sign is 30 degrees wide, and we start counting them at 0, 0, 1, 2, all the way up to 29, which means that 29 is the last degree there is. This is kind of like the final stretch of the road before the border. And in astrologers, we call it the Antarctic degree. And that kind of has a reputation because anything sitting there is in a very particular condition because it's done everything the sign has to offer. There's nothing left to learn there, and it's one step from a threshold it just cannot avoid, which produces a specific feeling of like urgency without options, completion that hasn't been formalized, a sense that a decision has already been somewhere and been made, and you're just kind of waiting for the paperwork instead. It's a little difficult for me to explain, but I hope that made sense. Now, what does Aquarius mean? Aquarius is fixed air, and it lines up with the deepest stretch of the winter, late January into February. And this is the coldest part of the year when there's nothing left growing and the light is only barely starting to come back. And that's the key to the whole sign. It's the deepest part of the winter. You don't have to survive alone. You survive by the group, shared systems, shared shelter, shared supply, and whatever everybody has agreed to hold together. Now, the individual is not the unit of survival in February. It's the collective. And that is why Aquarius carries what it carries. We associate it with community, networks, groups, systems, a collective, the thing everybody agrees on. Air means it works through ideas and connections. Fixed means it holds its shape and it doesn't bend easily. And it has a second face, which comes from the same source. Because when your survival depends on the group, the most dangerous and most necessary person is the one who says the group is wrong. It's kind of why Aquarius is also the outsider, the contrarian, the one who steps out of the circle. Because belonging and not belonging are the same question from two different directions when you really think about it. So when we put it all together, I think we find that the North Node, the point where the collective stories gets interrupted, is sitting at the very last degree of the sign of belonging. And this week it stations retrograde on Tuesday, then stations direct again on Friday in exactly the same spot. And it doesn't go anywhere. And instead it backs up. It wobbles. It turns forward again without moving. 4 days of motion that produces like literally no movement. And technically that is what the true node does. It kind of like oscillates slightly instead of moving in a clean line. And when it's crawling right up against a sign's boundary, you get these little back and forth episodes. So it's kind of like a known behavior, not an all omen or something. And I'd rather tell you that than let you think the sky is just doing something supernatural because it's really not. But I'm also not going to pretend it isn't kind of a perfect image for this week because like, here's what it looks like from the inside. Like something in your life, okay, is at 29 degrees right now. It's done. It's finished. You know it's finished. And you're still standing at the threshold of it, going back and forth, but not crossing. I don't think that's indecision. I think that's the specific paralysis of knowing exactly what to do and not being ready to have done it. And because it's happening at the end of Aquarius, it's about belonging, a group, a role, a circle, a version of community you've already outgrown and haven't formally left. And you know the one. Maybe it's, let's say, the chat that you don't participate in, but you also haven't muted. The circle, where you stop saying anything real, but you still show up. Or a relationship where you have already stopped explaining yourself, which is exactly where I open this episode when I think about it. That's 29 degrees. And y'all, here's the good news about the last degree. It resolves. Friday morning, that node turns direct and the hovering stops. It always does. See, the threshold's not permanent. It just feels permanent, like while you're standing in it. So if this week feels like you're waiting on something that won't arrive, what if you're the thing that hasn't arrived? And that's fine. Also, 4 days is really not that long when you really think about it. Anyway, so I also want to go back to what I said at the top about handoffs never being clean because Saturday is kind of the proof. So remember I told you how like when the sun goes into plan, like it didn't start taking the rest of them with them? The sun will be leaving Leo, but Mercury will not be. Mercury, it will spend this entire week trailing behind the sun, still back in Leo, and it stays there well into next week. And Jupiter is still in Leo too. Jupiter, it moves so slowly, it's actually going to be there for a long while. So, like, let's think about what that actually means, okay? Because Mercury is your mind, your thinking, your speech. Jupiter is your sense of possibility, of meaning, of how big a thing could get. So when the season changes Saturday night, both of those are still in Leo. And the calendar, it kind of be like sort and simplify, but your thinking is still expansive and warm and a little theatrical. Your sense of what's possible is still operating at a full summer volume. So the sun has moved basically into the room where everything's edited, and your mind is still in the room where everything's getting celebrated, is what I'm trying to say. But that mismatch is going to be the dominant feeling of the last week of August. You're going to probably try to get organized while you want to still be seen, or try to edit something while you're still trying to expand, or making a list and then immediately adding something just enormous to it. I think don't fight it, y'all. Don't even fight. Don't even worry about it. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. And don't read it as a failure, okay? Because it'll sort itself out in early September when Mercury finally catches up and crosses over. Until then, don't forget, half the sky is still in Leo. So why can't you be too? And that is why a season change is a stretch of time and not just a moment. You're not just going to be like, oh, the sun changed to Virgo, and now I feel like organizing and sorting things. No, the sun moves on a schedule, and everything else kind of takes its own way there. Honestly, really want to be real with it. So now that I said all that, what y'all supposed to, what y'all want to do this week? All right, I got some advice. 3 things. 1, protect Monday. Don't be launching, signing, deciding, pushing. Use late morning if you need some real output, and just try to let the rest of it be maintenance. Ain't nothing wrong with chilling. Put that hard conversation on Friday morning is the second one, because that's your cleanest window for saying the plain thing and not be over-explaining it. Don't be wasting your breath. Number 3, close something on purpose on Saturday evening. It doesn't have to be big. I think the point is to more so meet the season change that's already moving in its direction. And then for Wednesday night, if the pressure hits for you and there's nowhere to put it, don't forget the prompt. What am I standing at the edge that I know I'm already done with? Probably a person. And what would it actually cost me to cross? Not as much as it would cost me to stay right here. Write those both down and don't try to solve them, because that could be Wednesday's whole job. So next week, really quick. Sunday is the first full day of Virgo season, and I'll have the full breakdown for you then. Systems, editing, the body, and all the unglamorous work that makes the glamorous work possible. And a personal note before I get out of here, because I don't think there's one answer to this. Kind of relieved. So I'm a Virgo rising, and part of me has been waiting for the summer, waiting all summer for permission to be able to color code some things again. I just kind of feel like structure is coming back and I want it, okay? I'm also a little sad, though, because I do have a Pisces stellium, and that expansiveness and formlessness, anything could happen type of energy of summer just kind of feels like it's closing. And I don't know. It's just interesting. But I've stopped trying to pick a side on certain things, because here's the thing about a chart. It's not one placement. It's a whole sky. And it's really taken at one moment with a dozen different things in it that all want different outcomes. Your rising and your moon can be in an actual argument with each other. Listen, I'm trying to tell you. And my best friend is also a Pisces sun. We're only born 2 days away from each other. She's March 8th. I'm March 10th. Okay. And she's a Scorpio rising and Virgo moon. And the Scorpio and the Virgo have definitely just taken out the Pisces, okay? And same here. My rising and my sun and my moon are always beefing, okay? They're always putting those dukes up, raising those hands, giving each other the business, you know what I'm saying? But your sun can also want the exact thing your Saturn keeps refusing to fund. That's also not a flaw in you, and it's not something to resolve. That could just be what a chart is. So wanting the structure and grieving the openness at the same time, I don't think that's a contradiction. It almost feels like 2 real parts of me, at least, responding honestly to just the same event. And I think that's what a season change feels like when you're a person with more than one thing in your chart, which is every single one of us. So like I said, if you feel both this week, I don't think you're confused. I think you're paying attention, but that's just me. So before you go, honestly, if any of this landed, the free place to go is at the resource vault. It's where I keep the seasonal guides, the working materials. There's going to be a Virgo season drop there soon. And if you want the version that's about your specific chart instead of the collective week, that's the seasonal blueprint. That's the full birth chart reading written for your seasonal architecture. So hit me up if you would like one. But that's the week. I think you should protect Monday, say the number on Friday, close one thing on Saturday, and I will see you next week into Virgo season. If you want to know how to find the resource vault, I can show you right now really quickly. So this is the resource vault. All you got to do is put your email there, and then you will be sent a password pretty much immediately, and you will be able to see what I have. Let me see if I like to show you guys inside the vault. It's not a lot yet, but we're growing, we're growing. What is that site? Free. I just went to the same one. Bolt. Just told me I have an invalid password. So you would get the password, enter. What? Okay, this is hilarious. Can I not get into my own vault? Oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. Okay, well, it does work, you guys. Oh my gosh, I cannot get in, and I'm so confused because I stick with me for a second if you're still here. If you're still here, hi. My name is Jakayla, and I like astrology. And if you're here with me, I hope you're having fun. Is Hope here? If Hope is here, what's up, my girl? I do it for you. What was I looking for? Looking for my vault. This is so embarrassing, but this is like so me. Okay, okay. That is my password. I'm so confused. You know what? Probably because I'm like on here like with you guys, I probably like didn't type it right. Okay. Resource vault. Resource vault. All right, let's see. Heyo! We are in. But yeah, so that's what the vault looks like. And as we go along, like if you like Big Brother, you want to get the little cheat sheet, you get the full cheat sheet right there, and then you can download it, then you can save it as a little PDF, and you can do what you want with it. I don't care. I'm just happy that you're here, to be honest with you. Grateful, thankful for anybody who wants to listen to me talk at any time. Also, I apologize if there ever any audio issues. I don't really like go back through. I do not like to hear myself talk. I think a lot of people are like that. So I do apologize if there's ever any audio issues. That just may happen until, I don't know, I'm not the one editing them. Anyway, I hope everyone's good and has like an awesome week during this week. Bye bye.